Hi everyone, today we'll be talking a bit more in depth about CrafTangles Artcast. Now, I would highly suggest that you check out my introduction video on CrafTangles Artcast before looking at this video if this is your first video. Now, CrafTangles Artcast is a made in India alternative to Jesmonite, and you can create some beautiful resin like effects using these, and the products are equally durable. So what I do is, since this is the first video of Artcast, I kind of wanted to show you the mixing, measurements, etc. And then in future videos, I may skip the same depending on, how much the length of the video goes. So the ratio for the liquid to powder is liquid 1 part and powder 2.5 part. So what I have done is I have taken 30 parts liquid, which is 30 gram liquid, and then I have multiplied that with 2.5, which is 75 grams powder. So that is what I'll be removing here. So you can see that they come in two separate bottles. One part is liquid and one part is powder. Now since I have taken 1 part liquid, which is 30 grams, I'll be taking 2.5 part powder, which is 75 grams, and then we'll mix them to create our art cast, which we'll be using to cast the mold which I have shown you earlier, which is a tea coaster. Now here the measurements are extremely important, so please take care. Even the bottling is done accordingly, so make sure that you measure it thoroughly and follow the instructions which are given on the bottle to make sure that you get beautiful cast pieces. Now once I am ready with the powder and liquid, I have decided to add some pigment into the liquid. Now here I am showing you that you need to thoroughly mix your pigment before adding it into your liquid. Now you need to do this because pigments have a tendency to settle down in the bottom of the bottle. So before using it anytime, just make sure you shake it well and then add it into your liquid. Now I prefer adding it into my liquid and then adding the liquid into the cast. However, you could do whatever works for you. Normally another way is that I add liquid to the powder, I mix it thoroughly, and then sometimes I add pigment into the mix directly. So you could do that depends on what idea you're going for. So here you can see that I felt that white was a little bit less, so I kind of went back and added white pigment into the mix. Now here is my first attempt to try and create a swirly kind of an effect. So what I did was I took the brown Artcast pigment and I added a little bit of it, and then I mixed it roughly into the mix, and then you can see I'm kind of moving my hand in a circular motion clockwise and adding the solution or the mix into the mold, right? So here I did get a lot of beautiful waves on the corners, but not as much as I wanted, like the marbling effect, right? So I think one trick that I learned from here, which I'll be using in my future videos, which I'll be sharing with you, over the period of the month, is that don't mix your pigment a lot into the mix, because then you'll kind of you'll kind of lose the marbling effect and it will kind of give you one flat color. Mine was somewhere in between, so it kind of got mixed. So here you can see that instead of getting a natural white or a white color, because we added white pigment, what happened was I kind of got creamish tone color and then certain brown colors here and there. So now while I was pouring, I realized that my calculations were a bit off and I had to create another batch of the mix to pour in, because my mold was not completely filled, which is fine. So what I did was I created a small other batch of the mix, and while doing that I thought I'll show you another technique of gilding flakes. So today I'll be sharing two techniques of adding gilding flakes onto your cast object. So the first technique will be which I'll be showing you right now on the locket mold, where you can see that I have already added gilding flakes using a brush directly onto silicone mold. Now silicone molds have a tendency to kind of be sticky, so the gilding flakes will automatically stick there without any adhesive or anything. And then what we do is we pour our mix into the molds, and then once it dries, the gilding flakes will directly stick onto the cast that we have created. So there is no special glue or anything needed. Also, another trick and the most important thing with art cast is that same with resin, right? You use a torch to remove bubbles. The same way you will need to tap your mold thoroughly to make sure that there are no bubbles into your mixture. And also another thing is that right now I was doing in very small batches, like 200 grams, 100 grams, so on. So let's say if you are doing a big batch which is like a half a kg, and you are doing like a big mold, then in those cases I will highly suggest that you get like a stirrer, the mechanical stirrers that you get to stir your mixes, because once the mixes, that is the liquid and the powder, are added, you normally get a working time of 15 to 25 to 30 minutes depending on the temperature you live in. And so you will have to work very fast. You cannot be extremely slow about the mixing, and that is why I would highly suggest that if you are working in large quantity, get a mixer, and your mix will also be very smooth as compared to hand mixed. Now here you can see that I literally waited for like 15 minutes and I removed the pendants because they were not, they did not have a lot of depth. And you can see that they have dried beautifully and they came off beautifully out of the mold. And a little bit of gilding flakes is still stuck on the silicone mold. Now you could add another layer of the cast and get it out, or in my case I washed my molds thoroughly and I'll use it the next time with another idea. Now here the tea light mold, which is I think more in depth as compared to the pendant mold, I removed after 20 minutes, and here you can see that I was able to remove it properly. Now comes the part where you will add varnish or other, like you will seal your projects, right? So for that I would recommend that you wait at least 2 to 4 days before you varnish, because it is able to demold after 15 to 30 minutes, max 45 minutes to 1 hour, depending on how deep your mold is. However, it is still curing, so it takes at least a day to cure. In some cases, depending on how deep or how thick your mold is, it may take 2 to 3 days to completely cure. So in such cases, what I like to do is I like to put my varnishing after 3 days, so that ways you will not have any other issues, because what happens is once you add a layer of varnish on top of your cast piece, it is sealed. So if there is some water inside it, it will be weak, and it will remain weak because there is no opportunity for the water to dry out, because all the surface is covered with varnish. So that is why it is very important on when you varnish. Now coming back to the second technique of gilding flakes, which I am showing over here, is that you can use a type of gilding glue. Any type of gilding glue will work. I have used CrafTangles Foil Magic, which is CrafTangles gilding glue. So what I did was I took a little bit of it around on a brush. I applied it wherever I wanted the gilding effect. And then I have applied CrafTangles gilding flakes in the color Gold Dust and a dual tone gilding flake, which is a red and a gold combination, because I was going for a kind of a festive mode for Diwali. And then using a new brush which is completely dry, I kind of am pouncing the brush on top of where I had put in the glue. So what that does is it will kind of stick the gilding flakes on top of the glue. Now the time between applying the glue and applying the gilding flakes is that you need to let the glue dry for 2 to 5 minutes, maximum 2 to 3 minutes is good enough, and then you can apply gilding flakes on top of it. So those were the two techniques, one directly applying on top of the silicone mold, and second using a gilding glue. Now here you can see how I am applying varnish on the pendant. So what I have done is CrafTangles decoupage varnish gloss works beautifully with art cast. So what I am doing over here is I am kind of taking some in a brush and applying the varnish on top of my piece with a very light hand, so that ways you will not get any brush strokes on top of your project. So once the varnish has dried on all the pendants, which I think will take 30 to 45 minutes, what I'm doing is on one of the pendant I'm applying CrafTangles liquid glaze. Now this is a one part resin alternative by CrafTangles and it works beautifully. There are a lot of separate videos done on liquid glaze, so you can see them on understanding the technicalities, but this basically will give you a UV resin kind of an effect on your pendants, and it is mess free. It is just a one part solution. So here you can see I'm applying it using a back of my brush, and I'm making sure the entire surface area is covered just like how I would do on a resin piece, and then I'll let this dry for 24 hours. And after that I will show you a small video where I'll show you the difference between how the pendant looks with decoupage varnish as a varnish and using liquid glaze as a sealing medium. So as you can see, liquid glaze gives you more of a resin or a UV resin kind of a finish, and varnish will give you regular glossy finish. So depending on what kind of finish you want on your project, you could definitely use any of the two on Artcast. You don't need a separate product. So what I did in the last part was that the same gilding flake tea light that we did, I varnished it using the decoupage gloss varnish, and here you can see all the close-ups of all the 4 items that we did, which was 1 tea light holder and 3 pendants. So that was the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in another Artcast video soon, because it's an excellent medium for people who want to try out new techniques, and it is much more hassle free as compared to resin.